Hey guys, welcome to my channel. If you guys are new here, my name is Milan and this here is my Mini Cooper John Cooper Works. In today's video, we're going to be getting started by installing the best oil cooler that you can install on a second generation turbocharged Mini Cooper. Let's get started. The engine and the turbocharger both generate massive amounts of heat. The stock heat exchanger has both coolant and oil passing through it. The same oil and coolant that keeps the engine running right. The little heat exchanger gets both of them up to operating temperature rather quickly. However, when it comes to managing excessive amounts of heat, it fails to do the job. Instead of relying on the engine coolant to decrease the temperature of the oil, they'll both be independent and have their own rads to shut off heat after installing this kit. The kit you see here is engineered from the guys at RPM Powered. These parts are made out of the highest quality materials possible. The adapter plate is CNC'd 6061 aluminum with an extra port for an oil temperature sensor. The 10-row all aluminum radiator is made out of the same 6061 aluminum, which is then TIG welded and designed to fit precisely behind the grill with the use of 3D printed brackets. The hoses are made out of high quality 450 series braided nylon hose, and it comes with all of the hardware and drill bits needed to complete the install. Everything is also labeled really nicely, so it makes even a novice car enthusiast able to perform this job with confidence. The only thing that doesn't come with this kit is the seals. I decided to buy some and replace the old ones in my car due to how inexpensive they are. Now, just to note, before we get started, you don't have to have the entire front end of your vehicle off when doing this job. It does, however, make it a little bit easier since everything will be more accessible. In the front of the engine bay, on the side of the engine and trans, there's going to be a heat exchanger. This is very easily denoted by the little sad face it's wearing. It's going to be fastened to the oil filter housing by 5 Torx bolts. You can use hand tools or power tools to extract them. Now you can see here I'm using an electric Milwaukee ratchet to zip them off. Now take note that once you take the heat exchanger off, there's going to be coolant and engine oil that's going to come splashing out. So be sure that you have something underneath it to catch it all. I didn't, and that's why I had a little bit of a mess to clean up. Oh well, not a big deal. With the heat exchanger off, we can see that the coolant fills the 2 upper cavities, the eyes of the smiley face, where the 2 lower ports are for the engine oil, the part that makes the little frown. The heat exchanger is functional and for sure a good thing to have in your car if you ever winter drive your vehicle, as it ensures both fluids get up to operating temperature faster. Now, because my car is a track car, I won't be worrying about this because the car doesn't see the colder temperatures. So for me, I want my fluids to not overheat when I beat on the car when I bring it to the track. Using a pick tool, remove the 4 seals that are on the oil filter housing and replace them with new ones. Following that, bolt up the billet adapter plate to the oil filter housing and secure it in place using the included hardware. With a torque wrench, tighten them up to spec. It should look something like this. Following that, we need to make space for the oil cooler lines to run from behind the adapter plate to the radiator. We need to cut a little hole through the plastic rad support, and it will be found right here. I'm going to be using this Milwaukee rotary tool and a carbide milling bit to make a hole and then enlarge in the hole so the lines will fit through it. Be conscious of the important bits behind the rad, but if you are careful, you can do this little modification without problems. Smoothing out any aggressive edges because the last thing we want is the lines to puncture due to vibrations in the car from extended use. You can see that there's ample space now for the lines to run. Following that, install the front bumper bar up to the chassis. We need to find a good spot to mount the oil cooler. The 3D printed brackets sit over top of the AC condenser and onto the lip of the radiator. With it centered, we can now install the lower bracket. Put some 3M double-sided tape on the bottom of the brackets and then remove the protective layer. Slide them underneath the crash bar and into the oil cooler tabs. Then, pull the brackets forward so the tape adheres to the crash bar. This will tell us where we need to drill into the crash bar. Using a center punch, mark on the bar where the bit is going to be actually cutting through. Then, use the drill bit that's included in the kit, drill into the metal. Repeat the same thing for the other side. Using the supplied hardware, secure the oil cooler brackets onto the crash bar. A 10mm wrench or socket will help secure the nut into place while you tighten the bolt. Reinstall the crash bar onto the car and guide the oil cooler into the brackets. Fasten each of the brackets up to the oil cooler using the supplied hardware, one on each side. It should look something like this once it's installed. Next up, we need to test fit the lines. Starting with the shorter of the 2 lines, which is labeled upper hose, connect the straight connector to the top hole of the radiator, and then the angled 90-degree connector to the closer of the 2 fittings that's found on the adapter plate. After you install the other line, in the only spot that it can go, it should look something like this. Now, since they're both the perfect length, we can unthread the fittings and apply some thread sealant onto the male fittings only, which in this case is the fittings on the oil cooler and the adapter plate, not on the hoses. Use an adjustable wrench and ensure that both fittings are snug. You don't want to over tighten them too much because they're aluminum. Now, they're light, but they're also pretty weak, so just be careful. Now at this point, we're pretty much done. All that needs to be done is we need to prime the oil system right here so that the oil cooler gets filled up with oil. Now we want to do this in a safe way that doesn't put any harm to the engine. Let me show you how. Now the way that we're going to be able to do that is we need to disconnect each one of the coil packs that are found up here. Disconnect them like that, pull the plugs out, and then we're going to undo the spark plugs that's found on the end of them. So you're going to do that for all 4 of these. Once that's done, we're going to go in the passenger side of the car, disconnect the fuse that's going for the fuel pump so that no fuel is actually going to be fed into the engine. Now the reason why we want to do that is because we want to then go in the car on the driver's side, turn the key over so that the starter turns the crank, which then turns the oil pump, and that's going to feed the oil pump from the engine into the oil cooler and the lines. So because we're not going to be making compression because we have the spark plug removed, we're going to have the least amount of resistance possible while still having the engine together. Now, if you guys have an oil cooler that has, let's say, a fill port or something like that, where you guys can feed it directly into the oil cooler or the radiator, that would be ideal. But in this situation, and along with most other situations, you can't exactly do that. So that is how we're going to get that done. Once that's done, you can then reinstall everything back in the car. I'll have the torque specs in the description box if you guys want to tighten this stuff up after. But after that, you can get in your car and be on your ways. The oil cooler install is then going to be complete. Now my car is not exactly ready for me to go ahead and do that because I have other things to install on the Mini. However, that is essentially what you would do. So the install, I gotta say, was quite easy. The parts themselves are super high quality. I can't stress on that part enough. I am very impressed with these products. They're made in Canada. If you guys want to find more information about their stuff, you guys can find their information or Lorenzo's email in the description box. So that's going to be to RPM Powered's products. So you guys see this oil cooler that I got from them. Well, I also have another piece. I have a billet valve cover that's going to be going on the car. I'm going to be installing that next or in a video to come. However, I first want to address the car that I bought. I mentioned to you guys in a previous video that I bought another car. Now, none of you guys guessed this, so I'm going to give you a couple more hints before I actually reveal it. Now, I've got 4 hints for you. So the first one, it's small. Second one, it's automatic. Third, it's German. And fourth, it is a turbocharged 4-cylinder car. Any guesses? Let me know in the comment section. I want to drive this car. I still have a couple other mods to install on this thing, like the billet valve cover. I have some intercooler stuff to install. I have some final things to put on the Mini because you can still see it's not exactly all together. However, once all that's done, this thing is going to be on the road, and I'll be able to beat on this thing and track it. Let me guys know what you guys think about this video. Let me guys know what you think about the product, and let me know what you think about what that next car is. Comment section's down there. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.